What's up, Cerebral NFL fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Media Company. And we're going to be talking about Philadelphia Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon today. More particular, I got some news. I got some notes surrounding the defense. We are 17 weeks in, 16 games down into being able to judge and look over this defense with a fine-tooth comb and make assessments. So I'm writing an article that will be up later today that when y'all get a chance, I'm going to post it in the community section later this afternoon. You should definitely read, guys. I've done a ton of back study on this, a ton of research. There's a lot of detailed information, guys. I mean, I get into the weeds of breaking down the first quarter for you. That's how far in the weeds I got on that article, okay? So it'll be posted later this afternoon. Go check it out, guys. It'll be in the community area. So when I looked over the defense, let me just explain the way that I look at defenses. So to begin with, I think we always got to keep in mind what the goal of a defense is, right? To me, don't make it harder than what it needs to be when you're looking at the big picture. You know, you got to make it difficult when you're diving into details. But the big picture, right? Keep teams out of the end zone, get the ball back to your offense. As I dove into those numbers and looking at Jonathan Gannon, I got to be honest. It's quite complex. It's quite complex, and it stands out just from looking at those two things right from the jump. I knew this was going to be a really interesting study on the defense. Now, once again, Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, Nick Sirianni, and Jonathan Gannon, they all deserve credit for the season. I'm not taking credit away from anybody. They've done a heck of a job. Points allowed. Let's just jump right into this. Let's get right into points allowed. Main goal of your defense is to keep other teams out of the end zone, right? You want to be able to keep a team. Theoretically, I look at it like, all right, as long as you keep a team under 20 points, you are giving your offense, in essence, an opportunity to win ball games. So, points allowed. Who leads the league? Number one, New England, 270 total on the year. Number two is Buffalo, 279 on the year. Number three is Denver, 294. Number four is New Orleans, 315. Number five is Arizona, 328. Number six is Tennessee, 329. Number seven is Dallas, 332. Number 8 is Green Bay, 334, and then tied at number 8 with Green Bay is Philly, 334 points. You got a top 10 defense when it comes to looking at the parameters of keeping teams out of the end zone. I'm not claiming that there's not complexity to these things, right? I mean, your opponents do matter, but I will say is that we got to keep it in hindsight too, because Green Bay plays in the NFC North, which is pretty bad as well. It's not NFC East level bad, don't get me wrong, but obviously, every team, you have to play what's in front of you. It's a top 10 defense at the end of the season that way. That wasn't the issue I had when I dug in deep to like what's going on. And just to break it up for you, I'll keep going, guys, so that way you know the full perspective here. The 10th ranked defense was Seattle at 336. Tampa tied them at 336. 12 was Indy at 339. 13 was Kansas City at 340. 14 was San Fran at 341. 15 was the Rams at 345. 16, so top half of the league now. Miami at 349. Everything behind this is now the back half of the league. Cincy, 17, 355. 17, Cleveland, 355. 19, Carolina, 363. 20, Chicago, 376. 20, Baltimore, 376. 22, Pittsburgh, 385. 23, the Giants, 394. 24, the Vegas Raiders, 407. 25, Minnesota Vikings, 409 points. 26, Houston, 424. 26, the Chargers, 424. 28, Washington, 427. 29, Atlanta, 429. Number 30 is Detroit at 437 points. 31 is Jacksonville at 446 points. And 32nd, dead last, bottom of the league, the New York Jets, 477 points given up. It's just one element of what we're looking at today, guys. Stick with me, all right? I said two things, right? Number one, and the primary thing is keeping teams out of the end zone. But the other thing is getting the ball back to your offense. And I think this is where the story gets quite complex. What's the easiest way to judge if you're getting the football back to your offense? There's a couple of ways, right? You could judge it from, turnover rates, who's creating turnovers, who's getting the ball back to their offense in that manner, right? But you could also, and this is the way that I feel is the better way of doing this and the better way of judging this, is to look at third down conversion rates from the defense. To me, if you go to, everything today, by the way, I have some links down below if you guys want to follow along. So go to Pro Football Reference. That's where 99.9% of everything's going to go today. I linked it down below if you guys want to follow along. Just go down to team defense, all right? Scroll down till you get to team defense, advanced defense for the teams, and you'll be able to follow along with me. So the other thing that we're going to use today is I'm going to use teamrankings.com, right? They have an NFL team opponent third down conversion percentage. And I want to talk about that, right? Because we're talking about getting the football back to your offense. And I think this is where the defense gets quite complex because we are very much talking about a defense that is centered around the concept of bend, don't break, which can make this kind of a complex discussion, right? Third down conversion percentages for defense. Who is the number one defense in the NFL? Dallas. I hate to say it, guys, but I'm just reading the numbers. 32.2% conversion against Dallas's defense, which is number one. Number two is Buffalo, 32.5. I'm here to tell you guys, Buffalo, highly underrated defense. It's a really good defense. Number three is Baltimore, 34.78. Number four is New England, 35.71. Number five, Arizona, 36.41. Number six, Minnesota, 36.68. Tied for number six, Tennessee, 36.68. Number eight is Chicago, 37.37. Number nine, New Orleans, 37.39. Number 10, Carolina, 37.86. Number 11, Pittsburgh, 38.07%. Number 12, Seattle, 38.35%. 13 is San Francisco, 38.42%. Kansas City is 14 at 39.04%. 15, Tampa Bay, 39.15%. 16, Cleveland, 39.51%. 17, the Rams, 39.71%. 18, Indy, 40%. 19, Miami, 40.72%. 20, the Giants, 40.85%. 21, Vegas Raiders, 41.04%. 22, Cincinnati, 41.15%. And finally, 23rd, Philadelphia, 41.67%. We are at the bottom third of the league, third down defense conversion rate, right? Third down conversion rate, what offenses convert on us. I will say that the standard metrics for my personal likings is to be below 40%. You should be below 40%. Anything that's 38% or lower to me is outstanding. That's when you're in the outstanding level. Like you got a defense that gets the ball back to the offense, right? When you're under 40%, you got a good defense. Like it's a good defense. It does get the ball back to the offense. Like it's within the realm of reason. Now you always have to plus and minus things because, like, look, if you got an explosive offense that builds big leads, your defense is going to back off in the second half of games because it's really kind of a run the clock and just, you know, you're waiting to get the game over. And that's going to cause conversions, which can affect your rate, but not to the point of like swinging you 2 or 3 percentage points. You get what I'm saying, guys? I'll finish out the list. 24 was Houston at 41.97%. 25 was Green Bay at 43.23%. 26, Jacksonville, 43.54%. Denver, 27, 44.08%. 28 was Detroit at 44.21%. 29 was the Jets, 44.39%. 30 was Atlanta at 48.26%. 31 was Washington at 49.53%. And then 32 was the Chargers at 49.75%. Just from these very surface level statistics, I can tell you where I would start digging and what it tells me. Number one, it tells me Gannon runs a bend, don't break. He doesn't give up as much points. Some of that has to do with the competition we played in 3 weeks, and I wouldn't be shocked if it didn't swing things a little bit because I'll be honest, guys, we've had some fluff at quarterback we've played, no doubt about it. But you beat the opponents that are in front of you, and Gannon's done that. So you got to factor that in, right? I mean, Gannon's beat what's in front of him. He deserves the credit for doing that. But in saying that, I'm seeing some stuff right away from third down that makes me wonder, why are we getting stuck on the field in third down? We should not be, even though we're at the top part of the bottom third of the league at 23rd overall, you never want to be bottom third of the league. You guys know that. You don't need me to tell you that. You know right from the jump, like, something ain't right here. Something smells fishy. All right, let me get into it because this is a really complex thing. And I'm going to start off with, because we're almost 10 minutes into the video, I'm going to start off with, I know what every one of you guys probably came in here to find out from me. How often is Gannon blitzing? You guys want to know the blitz percentages. You want to know where everyone ranks in the league. I know it's a very popular topic. I got you. I did all the preliminary work for you guys. So blitz percentages. Philly ranks 31st at 16.1%. It's a complex story, guys. So when I look at the blitz, it's really about the goal. What's your goal, right? Your goal is to disrupt the quarterback. And there's different ways of disrupting the quarterback. If you have a really good defensive line, you don't necessarily need the blitz to disrupt the quarterback. But the story is complex with the Eagles. So just stick with me. I'll spell it out for you. But let's go over those blitz percentages in terms of the league. All right, guys. Number one was Miami, 39.8%, the highest blitz percentage team in the league. Almost 40% of their plays, they're blitzing. Number two was Tampa, 38.5%. Three was Carolina, 34.2%. Jacksonville's number four, 32.7%. Baltimore, number five at 31%. Washington, 30.4% is six. Number 7 is Arizona, 30.3%. Number 8, Kansas City, 28.4%. Number 9 is Detroit at 26.7%. The Rams are number 10 at 26.4%. Denver is 11 at 25.8%. And then there's a two-way tie at 12th place. Buffalo is 12th at 25.3%, tied with the Giants at 25.3%. That is the top third of the league in terms of pressure. Not pressure, I'm sorry, in terms of blitzing. In terms of blitzing, you go Giants, Buffalo, Denver, the Rams, Detroit, Kansas City, Arizona, Washington, Baltimore, Jacksonville, Carolina, Tampa, and Miami. Number 14 is Minnesota, 24.6%, showing you Gannon leads a little bit more towards what goes on in Indianapolis than he does Minnesota, to be quite honest. Now, that could be personnel driven. There's some complex arguments to make here. 15, Atlanta, 24.3%. 16, Dallas, 24.1%. Tied with Dallas in 16th is the Chargers, 24.1%. New England, 18, 23.9%. Pittsburgh, 19, 23.7%. Seattle, 20, 23.2%. 21 is the Jets, 22.2%. I'm sorry, 21 is the Jets, 22.2%. 22 is New Orleans, 22%. 23 is Chicago, 21.9%. 24 is Green Bay at 20.9%. 25, Cincy, 20.7%. 26 is Cleveland, 20%. I'm sorry, 20.6%, I think. No, I'm sorry. Cleveland and San Francisco are tied for 26 at 20%. My bad, guys. 28, Indianapolis, 19.8%. 29, Tennessee, 19.7%. 30, Houston, 18.9%. 31, Philly, 16.1%. Las Vegas Raiders, 32nd, 12.7%. Ugh, I need a drink, guys. Give me 1 second, man. That's a lot to read. All right. Let me lay this out a little bit, how I'm viewing this situation. Blitzing is one end to a goal. In my opinion, the real goal here is to knock a quarterback off his mark, right? You want to knock a quarterback off his mark. You want to maybe force him into either having to come off his reads or have to potentially make a mistake, right? That's really the bigger aspect of things. And when I think about knocking a guy off his mark, I'm looking at the hurry percentages, right? Hurry percentages means how, making a guy go to his reads faster than he wants to go or making him vacate the area, vacate the pocket. That tells me that, okay, you might be eating in different ways and you don't need the blitz to necessarily do it since we're clearly 31st in the league in blitzing. Hurry percentages, where do we stack up, right? Number 1 was Buffalo, 15%. Number 2 is Kansas City, 12.9%. Number 3 is Minnesota, 12.5%. Number 4 is New England, 12.4%. Number 5 is Denver, 12%. Number 6 is Philly, 11.9%. We knocked dudes off the mark. Number 7 is the Chargers, 11.5%. Number 8 is Carolina, 11.3%. Tied with Carolina at number 8 is Cincy at 11.3%. Number 10 is Tampa, 11.2%. Number 11 is Jacksonville, 11.1%. Number 12 is Tennessee, 11%. That is your top 12. Now, I broke this down even further for everybody. So I broke this down in terms of the hurry percentages compared to how often they're blitzing. So are they using the blitz to knock guys off, and where do guys rank in that way? I will say that the only team that ranks top 10 in terms of blitzing and then top 10 in terms of hurry is Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is 10th in hurry percentages and 2nd in blitz percentages. Tampa is. I'm sorry, Tampa and Jacksonville the Jacksonville's outside of it. Jacksonville's number 11, so they're top 12. They're 11th in hurry ups, but they're number 4 in terms of blitz rate. So when I look through it, how's the layout? Buffalo they're number 1 in terms of getting hurries. Number 12 in terms of how they use the blitz, how often they use it. Kansas City, number 2 in hurries. Number 8 in terms of blitz. So Kansas City will qualify. I missed Kansas City on that list I said initially. So it would be Kansas City and Tampa would be the 2 teams in the top 10 in both of those categories. Minnesota is number 3 in hurries, number 14 in terms of the blitz. New England is number 4 in hurries, number 18 in terms of the blitz. Denver, number 5 in hurries, number 11 in terms of blitz. And then you got Philadelphia is number 6 in terms of hurries, but 31 in terms of how they use the blitz. Chargers, number 7 in hurries, 16 in the blitz. Carolina, 8 in hurries, number 3 in terms of the blitz. Cincy, 8 in hurries, 25 in terms of the blitz. Tampa, 10 in hurries, 2 in terms of the blitz. Jacksonville, 11 in hurries, 4 in terms of the blitz. And then Tennessee, 12th in hurries, 29th in terms of the blitz. 3 teams stand out to me that are not heavy blitz teams that still get pressure on the quarterback. They still, I shouldn't say pressure. Pressure is a different rating. Still not guys off their mark in terms of the hurries. Tennessee, 29 and then 12. Cincinnati, 25 and then 8. And then Philly, 31 and then 6. Those guys clearly got good defensive lines. They're getting pressure, not pressure. I keep saying that word. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to explain why you can't say pressure here because pressure means something different. They're getting hurries. They're knocking quarterbacks off their mark without needing to bring blitzes. Now, that does not mean you still should not use the blitz. Not saying that at all. I definitely think that we should be a little higher than 16.1%. Maybe uptick it close to where Indy's at 19.8% in that 20 range. In my opinion, where I feel comfortable at is between 25% and about 20%. That 5% window is where I think the majority of teams should be in terms of utilizing the blitz. I think we're a little light at 16.1%. I'm not saying you need to be up in the top 12. You know, you got a good enough defensive line, you don't need to do that. But, you know what I mean? We're still a little light there. When I looked at pressure numbers, this is what threw me off because I was like, wait a minute. We're getting a ton of guys. We're knocking dudes off their spot. But when I looked at pressure, we were not where I thought we would be. In terms of pressure, the Philadelphia Eagles rank 16th. So we're in the top half of the league, but like dead set in the middle. And why pressure rate is so important in terms of a measurement to discuss today, guys, is for one very, very specific reason. And it has to do with the way in which you're grading these guys in terms of what they're doing, right? So how are they, you know, what is it about the defense that's messing with quarterbacks in terms of that, right? So pressures in particular, they look at, not only are they looking at the hurries, knocking a guy off their spot, they're looking at how often you knock down the quarterback, you hit the quarterback, and then how often you sack the quarterback. We know in one of those categories, we're just outside the top 5. We're number 6. That must mean if we're 16th in pressure, which weighs hurries, knockdowns, and sacks, something's going awry between knockdowns and sacks. Clearly, right? We're clearly knocking dudes off their mark, but we're clearly either not getting our hands enough on the quarterbacks and we're certainly not completing the play in terms of sacks. So pressure percentages, just to read it out for you guys, and you guys can see how it all kind of flows here. Number 1 is Buffalo, 29.3% in terms of pressure. 2 is Miami, 28.7%. 3 is Tampa, 27.2%. 4 is Carolina at 27%. 5 is Dallas at 26.6%. 6 is Kansas City, 26.5%. 7 is New England at 26%. 8 is Las Vegas at 25.7%. 9 is Minnesota at 25.4%. 10 is the Chargers at 25.2%. 11, Cincy, 25.1%. 12 is Pittsburgh at 25%. 13 is Washington, 24.7%. 14, Denver, 24.6%. New Orleans tied with Denver, 14th overall, 24.6%. Philly is 16 at 24.5%. Tennessee, 17 at 24.1%. Arizona tied with Tennessee in 17th, 24.1%. Baltimore tied with Arizona and Tennessee, 24.1%. Number 20 overall, Jacksonville, 23.7%. Green Bay tied with Jacksonville, 20th overall, 23.7%. San Fran, number 22, 23.3%. The Rams, 23%, 23rd overall. Cleveland, 24th overall, 22.8%. Number 25 overall, Chicago, 22.7%. 26, Seattle, 21.4%. The Jets, 27th overall, 20.9% in terms of the pressure rate. 28, Detroit, 20.2%. 29, Houston, 20.1%. The Giants, 19.7%. Indy, 31, 18.4%. 32, Atlanta, 17.1%. Knockdowns and sacks. Knockdowns and sacks would be the next big thing to look at. I'm just going to kind of read through this one, guys. Knockdowns, where does the Eagles rank? Where do the Eagles rank in terms of quarterback knockdowns? So I'm looking through real quick for you guys. 14th. So the Eagles are 14th overall, 8.9% of plays where they get to the quarterback and knock them down. Okay? Top half of the league, but not quite top third of the league. They're outside that top 12 mark. Your top 12 is Miami, Las Vegas, Tampa, New Orleans, Dallas, Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo, Carolina, the Chargers, Washington, and Arizona. That's your top third of the league. Your bottom third of the league would be like Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Denver, Minnesota, Atlanta, Houston, Giants, Rams, Chicago, Detroit. Philadelphia is just outside of that top third. San Francisco's 13th and Philly's 14th. We get to the quarterback. We knock them down. We knock them off their mark. But we know from the pressure percentages being dead middle in the pack, something's going on with sack rate. Something's happening with our sacks. Simply put, the Eagles are 29th overall in sacks, 28 on the season. We're not completing plays. We're not completing the pass rush. That's a big problem here, is that we're knocking dudes off their spot. We're hitting quarterbacks. We're doing things that, complicate and make things uncomfortable for quarterbacks, but we're not bringing them down. We're not sacking them. And that's a bit of a problem. Like, let's just be honest. Pittsburgh's number 1 at 52. The Rams are number 2, 47. Then you got Miami at 46, tied with Chicago at 46. Tampa, number 5 at 45. Minnesota, number 6 at 44. New Orleans, number 7 with San Francisco, number 7. They both have 43. Cincy, 41. Tennessee, 41, number 9. So Arizona is 11 at 40 sacks, and then Cleveland is 12 at 39 sacks. That's your top third of the league in terms of sacks. Some teams don't get a lot of pressure. Some teams don't get a lot of hurries. But when they get there, they make the play. They make a sack. That's complicated when we're dealing with the Eagles, guys. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's a very complicated situation. And it is what it is when you look at Jonathan Gannon's system. He gets pressure on guys. He doesn't give up a ton of points. He gets pressure on guys. He gets hurries, gets pressure. But he's not completing the play in terms of sacks. The defensive line is not completing the play in terms of sacks, I should say. There should be some element of responsibility that the defense should bear there. And that's the story of this defense. If you guys want to know some things about coverage, and we'll get into some questions. So coverage-wise, what's going on in terms of the coverage? So man coverage systems, who are your teams that play man coverage? So I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I give you 11 teams here. Miami, New England, Denver, Dallas, Baltimore, Carolina, New Orleans, Kansas City, Atlanta, Tennessee, and Buffalo. So those are your man coverage systems in the league. Miami, New England, Denver, Dallas, Baltimore, Carolina, New Orleans, Kansas City, Atlanta, Tennessee, Buffalo. Then I wrote down a second category. I call this category the more complex. More complex. Meaning they run some zone, they run some man, and they mix the coverages a little bit. That makes things a little difficult to kind of put together. The more complex categories like the Chargers, the Bears, the Jets, and the Giants. The Giants in particular, because they run kind of a concept that's called cover 5, but typically is referred to as cover 2 man under. So that makes their man to zone kind of thing a little difficult to break down. Now your zone heavy teams. I wrote down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 zone heavy teams. So Tampa, Indy, Minnesota, Philly, Washington, Green Bay, San Fran, Seattle, Vegas Raiders, Rams, Cleveland, and Detroit are your zone teams. Those teams are normally somewhere 30% or below in terms of man coverage snaps is where I would kind of classify where, you got guys that are not playing a whole ton of man coverage there. So Jonathan Gannon's defense, guys, if you got questions, put it in. I'll answer the best I can for you. Like I said, I got an article coming up. Read it this afternoon, guys. It's going to go real deep, man. It's going to go deep into this situation about Jonathan Gannon. What's up, Cody Kleinfelder? How you doing, buddy? Messiah Armstrong, how are you doing, sir? Good morning, guys. Good morning. Messiah said, I don't mind Jonathan Gannon. I just think he plays too passive. We're going to get destroyed if you play passive. Also, I can't lie. Sometimes when he does blitz, he just doesn't have the personnel. I don't mind him being passive, Messiah. It's the way in which he's passive, right? You can't be passive in terms of not blitzing and at the same time playing off coverage where you're 7-8 yards deep off of receivers. Because if you look at the average depth of targets for completions, you can see the Eagles are like 6.2 yards, which when you look at that, it's DADOT. So it's average depth of target when targeted. So when you look at that DADOT and you filter by the lowest in the league, it's 6.3, not 6.2. So the Eagles have the lowest depth of target in the entire NFL. Basically, because we're not bringing pressure and we got our corners and our secondary backed up, teams are just simply taking what you give them. And I think that's kind of a problem. Like I say, guys, if you want to follow along, I did link below. You can go to Pro Football Reference and follow along with where the stuff's being pulled. I linked it for you, so that guy. It's a free website, guys. You don't have to pay anything for that. I'm trying to use free resources in the videos for you guys. That way you can see things. Cody said, do you think Gannon will get better with time? Also, do you think he will be good enough to win in playoffs? Because all quarterbacks in playoffs he respects. We don't know. So, I mean, it's hard to say, Cody, because we don't know how he's going to respond to different sets, different formations, different players. We don't know what the adjustments are going to be. I think that there is a a far more complex discussion around Jonathan Gannon's first quarter defense in particular. That's in the article. I don't want to give away things. I got a lot of breakdowns about the first quarter defense from Jonathan Gannon, and there's something going on there that I think makes Gannon's defense a little tough to swallow for fans at times. It's a little hard to watch. It's not easy on the eyes at times. There's no doubt about it. Doesn't mean it's not effective, though. I mean, points are points, and he's keeping people out of the end zone. But I do wonder the same thing against better competition, against better quarterbacks. Can he win? What's up, NFC East Beast? He said, good morning, Gates Gorillas. How you doing, man? Allison said, Madden said you should only blitz 20% of the time. I think there's nuance to that, Allie, to be quite honest. Like I said, I look for, numbers right around 20%. I look for 25 to 20%. But I think it has to do with your line. Like, you have to bring pressure. But it depends on your line. If you got a good enough line, then you don't need to bring as much pressure, right? You can do some things from stunts, twists, things like that to help get your defensive line from guys just doubling up on blocks. NFC East B said, in my opinion, it takes time for a team to learn and execute a new scheme. We have seen this before. Yeah, and we also have to look at limitations. I mean, what is Gannon doing in terms of playing coverage to a certain extent to cover up some of the shortcomings of players? I do think that has a part to do with it, but I also think, man, there's a time where dudes got to earn their bread, man, and you can't cover it all the way for them. They got to prove it. There's a point. There's a certain line you got to start pushing back a little bit as the coach. Jeffrey McIntosh, what's up, buddy? Said, hey, we have no choice but to trust him play calling for the defense. Besides, if he does really good, we may lose him, but he will gain experience. So I'll say it this way. Like, the thing about Jonathan Gannon when it comes to play calling is it's complex to analyze him, because being the secondary coach, I don't know how much he contributed to actual on-play calls before becoming a defensive coordinator, right? With Nick Sirianni being an offensive coordinator with a head coach who was, kind of calling the plays, we know that he had some element to do with things on the field in terms of, okay, like, this is the down and distance stuff. This is what we're going to do in these situations. Here's the play call sheet. I don't know if Jonathan Gannon with Eberflus had that same kind of mentorship. I don't know. Like, I would think to some extent there has to be some element of that there. But you got to remember, Gannon in Minnesota was just an assistant defensive backs coach. In Indianapolis, he became the defensive back coach. So I don't know, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how much experience he really has with that element of things. So even though Nick Sirianni didn't have a ton of experience physically calling the play in, he had been part of the game planning aspect of that and knowing the situations and how to approach things for a few years. So I do think that there could be some nuance to those points. Mike Diesel said, based off these numbers, what would you say is the biggest position of need on defense in the draft for current scheme? Impact player? I don't think it's as easy as saying, look at these numbers and then say, because there are some complex issues following the defense. Darius Slay is 31. Fletcher Cox, I believe, is 31. You got some issues. Brandon Graham will be 34. Ryan Kerrigan was only on a 1-year deal. Josh Sweat's locked up, but Derek Barnett's on an expiring 5th-year option. So, you do have some issues there. I do think defensive line, if you can grab a marquee player, you take it. But you still need you need a corner, and you need a young stud at corner. So you got to go. I'm not saying it has to necessarily be in the first round, but you need to go early in the draft. You need to find a guy that can play. On top of that, safety is really important to this particular scheme. We definitely don't have the element that I see there at Sam linebacker. I think Avery's been better than what we may have thought going into the season. I think he's gotten better as the season went on, but Avery is not quite the fit that they want at Sam. He's a guy that he's gotten better, and he's just a good football player. But I definitely think that they could use a Sam linebacker. I think they still need somebody at corner. I still think they need a safety, and if you can get a marquee defensive lineman, you have to do it. What's up, Kurt? He said, what's good, coach? I feel happy about our team. Being in the playoffs is a good thing, in my opinion. Like, anytime we can make the playoffs, I'm in favor for having playoff football, man. It's definitely a big to-do, in my opinion. Boys for life, what's good, man? What's up, everyone? Who's ready for the Cowboys-Eagles Saturday night, the backup bowl? Boys for life, I gotta be honest with you, I don't buy the whole Jerry Jones thing about well, maybe, I don't know if it was Jerry Jones or if it's the coach, but we're going to play Dak. We're going to play. To me, that would be incredibly stupid. You're going to play your starting quarterback against a backup defense that has no incentive other than to try to hurt your quarterback. To me, that would be a huge mistake. That's exactly the type of game you don't do that for. Kurt said, ready. Boys for Life said, just gave you a follow on Twitter. Appreciate you, Boys for Life. Kurt said, why do we make our best adjustments at halftime, but not after the first quarter? You got to remember, the first quarter is highly scripted, and I think that leads to issues with the game plan, scripting and predicting what they're going to do. I will say, Kurt, that to be fair, one side of playing backup quarterbacks, right, is that these guys are normally not viewed as being better than the dudes that are ahead of them. But the other side of playing backup quarterbacks is that you don't know what, you have a scheme. You've seen this team run this thing for X amount of weeks, and then all of a sudden you got a new guy underneath center. The offense is going to shift, and it becomes a little more difficult to game plan for. I do think that certain elements with certain guys, it should be quite obvious that they're going to try to check it down, and you should be able to stop a dude. But I do think that, maybe the adjustments should be made a little sooner at times, to be quite honest. I agree with you. There are times to where it's like, come on, man, they've had 3 possessions in the first quarter. We should kind of have a pretty good idea of what they want to do from a scheme standpoint to attack our defense, especially like last week. Last week, they had a beat on the zone, and they were just basically throwing right into the vacated areas of the zone. And then finally, we made that adjustment. And guys started rallying and tackling. That's true. Guys finally started to rally to the football, started tackling. The things Jonathan Gannon say in that respect, they are true. He does have a point. That is true. But also, I've seen him doing a little bit more from the defensive line to create pressure. Not necessarily that he's blitzing, but we got way better on third down in the second half. Messiah said, if we get pieces for Jonathan Gannon's scheme in the draft, do you think it would do a lot better? Sure. I mean, anytime you upgrade talent, it's going to be easier to coach it, right? I don't know that, you have to assess where it is, where the scheme fits are, and who that player is that gives you that kind of uptick. I hope that Miami's pick remains at 14, and I hope that Indianapolis, it's not personal Indy fans. I have no hostility towards you. We own your first round pick. So I hope they lose, and I hope that pick becomes a top 18 pick as a result of them losing. So now you got, a pick that could be around 14, a pick, you got 2 picks between 14 and 18. That helps you, especially if you want to try to trade up and go get a dude if someone's willing to get back, if they missed on a target they want. Because we do need impact guys. We need impact players for this team. There's no doubt about it. NFC East B said, I'm not saying this defense is good. It's just a bunch of guys in Slay. I think it has overperformed. I think to an extent, you're right, NFC East Beast. I think we've also taken advantage of poor quality competition at times too. What's up, Scoob-Doo? He said, Gate City, what a year, my guy. Hey, I'm glad. I'm really glad the way things kind of shook out for us. The GOAT. Vester Lettuce Choke. What's good, my guy? Lettuce Toke. My bad, man. Natira said, both Gannon and Sirianni are really good at making adjustments in game. At the half, I give Gannon a lot of credit because what you saw what he did on third down in the second half of the game speaks volumes to that adjustment. I don't know what the communication is, and it's something that we probably won't learn maybe until maybe the offseason. I don't know what the communication is in terms of in-game in the first half. I don't know who's in the press box, who's on the field, where guys are linked up and radioed in. That's certain aspects that sometimes don't get really revealed to you until quite some time. So I'm not too sure how that works. And that might be part of the reason why the adjustments don't come until half. The Eagles might need to reevaluate that in the offseason. You know what I mean? Kivo said, I was at the last game. Gannon has been implementing numerous defensive formations and disguising. He's more so into the mind game inside than actually sending extra defenders to force the confusion. To an extent, yes and no. I don't see a ton of disguise. He's been rocking the safety, Kivo, which I understand people might classify that as a disguise, and to some extent it is because If you're rocking your safety, you're basically giving them like one look, like quarters or cover 2 or something like that. And then you're going to move your safety down onto the box. So that way you have more defenders to shut down the run, or, you know what I mean? You have a different little bit of a look. I mean, it is technically a disguise, but I don't know that it's necessarily a disguise for coverage. It's more so a disguise for run or trying to force you into doing something. Teams did that to the Eagles when we kept kind of hitting those tunnel screens and stuff and the RPOs. One of the ways they knocked us off the RPOs was to manipulate the box to get Jalen to do what we want him to do. So, I mean, things like that kind of do happen, no doubt about it. He's run some palm coverage from time to time. Palm coverage is basically being similar to robber, which played on the outside. I haven't seen a ton of robber. Robber is basically when you're utilizing that across the middle of the field and there's normally a safety that's there to jump a route. I haven't really seen that per se, Kivo, but I won't say it hasn't happened at all this season. I think it's a bit of a stretch, but I expected to see more. I do think that he's more willing to try to get one-on-one matchups with the defensive line now. Like, he's using that. We don't really use a true bear front. I think it's been said recently. Bear front is when basically you have guard covered, center guard, guard cover, center cover, guard cover. That's a bear front. A lot of times you see it on short yardage and goal line stuff. Some teams will do it just to kind of, Washington's pretty big at doing that, just to create matchups in the running game. We create like kind of a similar 50 front, a 5-down front, but we use Avery kind of in a stand-up joker or Patrick Johnson in that role. And then basically what we do is we try to create that one-on-one matchup thing. But we do run, we run more of 2 eyes out of that instead of having like, basically a 2-eye, a nose, a 0 tech, and then a 2 tech. We're more like 2-eye, than like 2 4 eyes or 2 5s. And then you got Avery kind of outside one of them. So, I mean, that's kind of how we create that one-on-one matchup. And then he's been doing some stuff off of that, stunts, twist, things like that to get pressure or to, get hurries and knock a dude off his spot. What's up, Big Jim Cruz? He said, keep up the hard work. This will pay off. Continue building. Appreciate you, Big Jim Cruz. Thank you, sir. Kivo said when he was hired, he mentioned the Joko podcast. He likes to listen to Who's at War vets and then speak deeply about conquering the mind. It's very interesting. He's post-snap disguising. To an extent. I don't think it's that creative, honestly, Kivo. I think he's got to get better, actually, at post-snap disguise. I think it's a little obvious. Just speaking from quarterback perspective, like, there's nothing about his defense that's that confusing to me. The one game that I thought he did it, he made an adjustment, and I saw a little bit more of an attempt at disguising things was the Carolina game. I definitely think he fell into doing a little bit more creative stuff there. I'd like to see more of it. He's got to get a little, in my opinion, he's got to get a little better at it. Just like I think that the design on his blitzes make a ton of sense, but the problem is more so the execution of it because you're bringing depth too far. The depth is too far on the blitzes. So you need to bring things up a little bit, and it has a lot to do with the shell we run, that cover 2 shell. When you got a 2 safety high shell, it's a little hard to simulate pressure like that. So I think that has a lot to do with things, guys, to be quite honest. While we have a few minutes, while I'm letting you guys kind of come in with comments, I'll just kind of talk about one of the, kind of partnerships that's been struck up here. This is just someone that I enjoy pushing out there because a lot of you guys like to know, like, how can I get the games? Gate, I don't live in the area where the Eagles are covered. I'm normally stuck watching this team. I'm going to tell you how you can get the games. Link down below is NORDVPN. If you have a wireless router where you can install a VPN on that wireless router, you can then change where your server is coming in from, thus giving you access to things. Like, for instance, for me personally, if you're using NordVPN, I have an NFL.com Game Pass account in Europe. That NFL Europe Game Pass account allows me to basically access the European servers. And then, because in Europe, they get the games broadcasted, I get the games once I do that. So I only have to pay for the VPN, and then I pay for my membership for NFL Pass, Game Pass in Europe, and then I have access to the games. So kind of unique and pretty cool trick to kind of know, guys, is that, you can ask me questions if you're a little confused about the router thing. I can try to help you out there, but NordVPN, using that, putting that on your router, definitely gives you some access to some pretty unique and cool things, guys. All right, y'all. Kivo said, I think he'll do much more. I think it's more so guys are still learning. I think you can say there. So he can't just put it all out just yet. He's clearly sprinkling in little by little, slow process, I'm guessing. I don't necessarily think that guys are learning because, that's short selling the veterans that are out there, guys. I mean, Anthony Harris, Rodney McLeod are veterans. Darius Slay's a veteran. Steven Nelson's a veteran. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not, I don't think that's what's going on. They understand coverages. They understand how to do those things. I think there's limitations. Simply put, like, Rodney McLeod was coming back from a second ACL injuries in his 30s. It may have taken him a little while to get his legs back under him. Now we're starting to see Rodney McLeod make plays on the football and take it away again, right? Anthony Harris, I think, is a very unique safety in that I don't think he's the most athletically gifted dude. He's tough as crap, man. You see him when he gets around the line of scrimmage, what he can do. He'll pop you. But in saying that, I do think there are some limitations to his, athleticism when it comes to Anthony Harris. Same thing when you look at Steven Nelson. Steven Nelson's scrappy. He's a fighter. He'll get down there. He'll try to stick a guy. He'll try to hit him. All those things are true about Steven Nelson. Steven Nelson has slow foot speed. Just be honest. He was very susceptible to double moves. And if you go back to Buffalo's game last year, if you watch that Buffalo and Pittsburgh game last year, you can see what Gabriel Davis did to him on double moves. He ate him up, man. So, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that the guys don't understand how to implement the things that he wants to do. I think there's limitations to being able to implement the things he wants to do. You got a guy like, Darius Slay, who can pretty much do anything. He's that athletically gifted. But the other guys that are supporting cast outside of you, like, I think Avonte Maddox has the type of athleticism you look for. He's got the toughness to be a nickel. Darius Slay he's one of the better outside corners in the game. But then you get more so into Steven Nelson. He's respectable. He's not great. He's not even, I wouldn't even say he's very good. I would say respectable, right? Rodney McLeod coming back from an injury, being in his 30s, things like that. Anthony Harris being limited. And I think that's why we see the defense looks a little different when a guy like Marcus Epps comes in the game. Marcus Epps isn't instinctually, he's not where Anthony Harris and he's not where Rodney McLeod are. But in terms of the athleticism, he's head and shoulders above those dudes. Guys, far more athletic than those guys are. And that's what stands out to me, Kibo, about those guys. Marky Mack said, does Gannon have the ideal personnel for his style? You're kind of leaning right into what we're saying. If not, do you think his scheme would change if provided players with a better scheme fit? Marky Mack, I think you're hitting on to something, which is probably the counter argument about not having your guys, which is, well, as a coach, shouldn't you really alter your scheme to what your guys can do? And I do think there is some legitimate criticisms that can come out of that towards Gannon to say, like, hey, man, I get that to some extent you kind of have to run your scheme. Your scheme's your scheme, but maybe you shouldn't make comments in press conferences where you say that you don't really have a scheme. Like, come on, man. Everyone clearly has a scheme. That's nonsense. That was straight just nonsense talk. And I like Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon is a very smart guy. I can tell you just from his press conferences and hearing him talk, like, he's a football guy. He's a very smart football guy. But I think that that's a legit criticism, Marky Mack, that, we know that going forward, we're going to need to get you some pieces to do things you want to do. But I think he tried, just like Nick Sirianni tried to play to the strengths of Jalen Hurts early on the season by doing the spread concepts and running more of that RPO style of offense. And it took him a little while to adjust and figure out, like, maybe that's not the best thing for Jalen, actually. Maybe we should play to the strengths of the team instead of the strengths of a player. And then Jalen Hurts just absolutely acts, he's just basically like this great luxury piece to have because he actually adds to the value of what your team strength is, right? So, you look at that defensively, I think it's a pretty similar argument. Like, you look at a guy like Steven Nelson and you're giving him 7-8 yard cushions on receivers and guys are just eating you up on out routes, comebacks, stuff underneath of you, things like that. 6.3 depth of target says it all. We lead the league in terms of people just dumping it off on us, taking what's given. And that shows, right? They're dumping off on us. These are irrefutable facts. They're in the numbers I showed you earlier, guys. 6.3 yards, which is number one in the league. So teams are just straight dumping the ball off on us, taking what's given there, right? And our third down conversion, Mark, when we look at third down conversion defense and where the Philadelphia Eagles rank, we're 23rd. We're 23rd. Even though we're a really good scoring defense, we're keeping dudes out of the end zone where bend don't break. Guys are converting. It's limiting how often you get the ball back to the offense. And then, you know what I mean? Like, the better quarterbacks put the numbers up on you. So even though that you can get the lesser quality guys and your points allowed show that, the better guys have got you. And I think that's a very good point, Marky, to say that maybe there were other ways of using the strength of the defense and not just trying to do these weird things around one player. Mike Smith says, who is our best matchup as far as Gannon goes? As far as Gannon goes, different ways of looking at it, right? So if I look at a team like the Chargers, they like to run outside zone. We're good. We're getting a lot better at stopping the run. I think it's one of the areas where we've improved drastically throughout the course of the season. But what I will say is that Cooper Kupp is like a really difficult matchup for guys, right? But Matthew Stafford, he's definitely got all the talent in the world. Matthew Stafford issue has nothing to do with talent at all. But he'll turn the ball over. Matthew Stafford will turn the ball over. And if you look at it from this perspective, if I take OBJ and I take a guy like Darius Slay and I just put Darius Slay on OBJ to try to limit him, right? And then I bracket coverage Cooper Kupp. Higbee's really the only other guy, that I'm really worried about here. And I shouldn't say that because Van Jefferson has gotten a lot better for them. Van Jefferson is respectable. We would love to have Van Jefferson on this team personally, but you get the overall scheme. What I'm saying here is that there are some limitations to the Rams. And I also would say that their run defense is very suspect. And they're light on the line, and we're a physical run team. So I could see that. Defensively, maybe we could do some things to get the ball back to the offense and really run the clock out on a team like that. The other one would be, Tampa. Look, Tampa's got Tom Brady, and if you play this weak zone crap on Tom Brady, I don't care who he's got out there on you. He's going to move the football on you, and then you're just trying to basically keep him out of the end zone, hoping to keep him to field goals and try to sneak a win away. The issue being is this. Tom Brady now, AB walks off the field, he's done. He's probably done in the NFL. That's what it seems like to me. So AB's not there anymore. You still have Evans, Evans a great player. Godwin went down with the ACL. Like Leonard Fournette might not be back for the first round of the playoffs. So you might have a team that doesn't have AB, doesn't have Chris Godwin, and doesn't have Leonard Fournette. It's a favorable, it's a fairly good matchup. So I would think those two teams in particular, Dak struggling. To be quite honest, Dak is struggling, but I do think their defense could pose a problem because their defense, look, guys, if you look over these numbers, their defense, while it's only 13th in sacks, I will say it's gotten better of recent as their defensive line's gotten healthier. You look at quarterback knockdowns, they're number 5. You look at pressures, they're number 5. And you look at hurries, and Dallas is number 13 in hurries. They get to the quarterback, man. And if you got a guy that processes quickly and gets the ball in your hands, that's one thing. But we really be depending upon Jalen Hurts to basically threaten them to slow down things. So we'd have to build in a lot of things like screens and stuff like that and really run the ball at them. Because I do think they're another team that has a light offensive line. Or defensive line, I'm sorry. Their defensive line is very light. But hard to say, guys. It's hard to say, man. Like, this is a different era of football, and this is a different time in football when you get to the postseason. Kivo said, well, not learning, but like you said, limitations. Harris looks pretty tight in the hips. Facts. You're definitely on point. Thank you, man. Appreciate that, buddy. Eagles Realist, what's up, buddy? Said, what's up, Gate City? Another day, another dollar. Yes, sir. Hope you guys are all doing well and earning another dollar. Allie, what's good? She said, based on your study of his defense, would you say JG is only aggressive when he has to be? Would that change with better athletes on defense? That is $1 million question, Allie, that if I felt like I could answer, I probably would get $1 million contract from some network. To be quite honest, Allie, you're on to something, which is we know that he comes out of zone systems, right? Minnesota and Indy are both clearly zone systems in terms of coverage. But when I looked at things such as pressure rates, like, so if I'm looking at something like, let's go to blitz rates. Let's take a look at the blitz percentages, right? I look at Minnesota and they're 14th at 24.6%. They love to bring those double mug looks. They like to basically come through those double A gaps with that look there. Now, you look at a team like Indy, and you look at the blitz rate, they're 28th, 19.8%. Philly's 31st at 16.1%. I'm starting to wonder if Eberflus doesn't have a bigger impact on Gannon's thoughts about defense than Zimmer. I think Zimmer clearly influenced him in certain ways, but I wonder if Eberflus is maybe the more prominent and driving force behind what he's learned, coming into the league, because perhaps if he had the right fits at linebacker, you'd see a little bit more towards Zimmer and those double A gap mug stuff. You'd see that happen a little bit more often, right? Perhaps you'd see some zone blitz stuff coming out of that, right? Some other zone blitz package stuff. I just don't think that that's what he wants to do. I think he wants to build a dominant line and then do like what Eberflus does, which is use stunts, twists, things like that to get there. I will say that Eberflus is not having the same luxury as Philly in terms of the line, although those guys are completing plays once they get there. They do get sacks. But when you look at like the hurries, right? When you look at hurries, this is how good the defense is. Philadelphia is number 6 in hurries. You look at Indianapolis and you look at hurries, they're 32nd. So from 6th to 32nd in terms of knocking a quarterback off their mark. Obviously, like Indy doesn't have the same caliber of talent. It's younger. I'm not going to say they don't have talent on the D line, but it's a lot younger than Philadelphia's, to be quite honest. Now look at pressure percentages, right? So this is quarterback knockdowns, hurries, and sacks all kind of built together, Allie. So when I look at pressures, Minnesota's 9 because they'll blitz you, right? Philly is 16 because although they may not blitz as much as other teams, that defensive line is good enough to get you, right? Well, when I keep scrolling down, I find Indy, they're 31st. They're 31st when you look at that in terms of pressure. Quarterback knockdowns, right? You look at Minnesota. Where's Minnesota at in terms of quarterback knockdowns? Getting to the quarterback and hitting them. Actually, Philly's ahead of them at 14th. Let's see. Minnesota's 26th. Where is Indy? Sorry, guys. And Indy's 17th. It's all in the way you read it. I think that, to be quite honest, Gannon's system currently in Philadelphia is probably a little closer to Eberflus than it is to Zimmer, to be honest. There's elements of both defenses. There's no doubt about it. But I definitely see a little bit more of, Eberflus's influence than what I see of Zimmer's influence, to be quite honest. Would I say he's aggressive when he has to be? Yes, very much so. Very much so. He's aggressive once he has to be aggressive, right? Once he has to bring some kind of a simulated pressure package to knock a guy off his mark or force a guy into a mistake. NFC East B says, I think to win at LA, we would have to play big, 12 or 13, and run between the tackles or play action, quick throws to slants, angles, whips, and tight ends in the out stuff. I definitely think you have to get physical with LA. And I think that we're a matchup nightmare for LA. But what I will say, because the Rams are 10th in blitz percentage. In terms of hurries, where do they rank in terms of hurries? They look like they're pretty far down the list, actually, in hurries. So in terms of hurries, they're 13th. So they do knock guys off their mark. In terms of pressure, so quarterback hits the whole 9 yards, added into that, guys. You look at the Rams, and the Rams are 23rd. So it seems like they definitely blitz you, right? They'll definitely knock you off your spot, and they'll definitely sack you. But when you look at things like quarterback knockdowns and things like that, they don't quite rank where you would expect them to be. Quarterback knockdowns and pressures, they're not quite there. So yeah, I agree with you. If you can get physical with the Rams, you'd probably keep that pass rush off you. Brawlster B, what's up, man? How you doing? So what's up, Gate City? Heading into work right now, listening to the stream. Why do you think Gannon can't have an effective game plan for the first half? It's always his soft zone bullcrap. It's a great question. I wonder if it has to do with his experience, Brawlster, is what I'm kind of like beating around the bush about here, is that maybe he's doesn't have a ton of experience putting together these game plans. Like, I don't know how involved he was with game plans compared to Sirianni. Like, Frank Reich flat out came out and said that Sirianni deserves a ton of credit for the game planning of Indianapolis' system, right? Those situational things. That's what he did for that offense. I don't know that Gannon had that same influence, right? I think Gannon's very much more of a teacher. I think he's creative. I think he understands concepts, but I'm wondering if he's going to be a guy that maybe will be good one day. He's going to be a really good coordinator, actually. I really do think he's going to be a good coordinator eventually. But I do wonder if it's partially because he doesn't have the right fits quite yet, partially because he has not adjusted to what's on staff here, what's on the roster, and then partially because he's inexperienced. And his game plans aren't where they should be. All that to me it all kind of goes hand in hand a little bit. Beachhead, what's up, man? Watching Avery Sunday, man, I think we should try to use him like Dallas does Parsons. That rush up the middle sack he got late was awesome. That's what I thought they were going to do, Beachhead, to be honest with you. Like, when I first saw the Eagles and I saw what was going on, I thought that was what we were going to be in for. I thought that was the style of offense we were going to see played. It didn't quite turn out that way, but that's what I thought. That's what it looked like initially, but it's not exactly what happened. Things happen, I get it, but I definitely expected more, and we didn't quite get it. because, that's what we saw and that's what we heard reported about, training camp, even in preseason looks. That's the preseason looks we were given about Avery. And then we dropped into the games and he was more so just playing like this outside contain from, basically from that stand-up joker rusher kind of perspective. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting to what seemed like we were going to use them and how it actually turned out to be used. I think we should just use Avery more anyways. In terms of what we have on the defense right now, sure. I think, Avery's a guy that is respectable. I wouldn't hate the Eagles bringing him back, to be quite honest. But I also feel like just like TJ Edwards, where they're respectable, they're good. And these guys are good safety blankets to have in the room because you can still play decent football and win with them. You can also upgrade over them. So they're not going to necessarily restrict you from finding a dude that's crazy athletic and has that crazy potential and bringing them in. I think those are the type of players you want to have on your roster for effective money in terms of not overspending for guys, but knowing those dudes can run your scheme. Those dudes will do what you ask them to do, and they're better than what maybe the league thinks about them. So in that perspective, I definitely agree, guys, 100%. All right, y'all, we're going on an hour. I'm about to close it off here in a minute just because I will be live again tonight. I will be on BGN Network, Bird Gang 31's network, and we'll be doing our national football show. So we're going to be talking about basically what we're going to be talking about is the NFL playoffs. We're going to give a national perspective on who we think might make some noise in the playoffs. We're going to talk about that tonight, guys. I really hope you guys are there to join us on that. But yeah, NFC East Beast, I saw your question, man. Let me get to it real quick. He said, for Tom Brady, it's all about the defense getting them in third down and getting Tom Brady 12 off the spot. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's about getting him in third and long situations and then moving Tom Brady off his mark. Exactly. I think it's as easy as that, but it's easier said than done, right? Because Tom Brady is very much good at staying on schedule with the offense, right? He's going to execute your offense. I think it's definitely true about Tom Brady, and it's one thing I really respect about Tom Brady. All right, guys, thank you all so much. I will be back tomorrow as well, 9:05 a.m. Don't forget to read the article, guys. The article is going to go over a ton about this defense, guys. I'm still working on it. It's going to be published by tonight. There's a lot of information that's going to be in that article, guys. It's going to give you a pretty good perspective on what Jonathan Gannon is. All right, y'all. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow, 9:05 a.m. Later, guys.